This is the story of Ne Zha, one of China's most legendary mythological figures. A rebellious, fiery spirit who has fascinated generations, whether in ancient scriptures, epic novels, or modern-day films. But where does Ne Zha's story really begin? To understand his origins, we must look beyond China, to ancient India, to Buddhist texts, and to the fascinating way myths evolve across cultures. Before Ne Zha became the rebellious warrior of Chinese legend, his origins can actually be traced back to ancient India. Some scholars believe that Ne Zha's name and characteristics may have been inspired by figures from Hindu and Buddhist traditions. One of the earliest possible influences is Nara Narayana, a pair of Hindu deities known for their divine power and protection of righteousness. Another potential origin is Nalakuvara, a minor Hindu god associated with youth and mischief. Both figures, like Ne Zha, are connected to supernatural strength, spiritual trials, and a certain rebellious nature. But how did these ideas travel all the way from India to China? During the Han Dynasty, Buddhism began spreading from India to China through the Silk Road. Along with Buddhist philosophy came a host of new gods, spirits, and mythological stories. Ne Zha is one of them, and often depicted in Buddhist guardian iconography. Ne Zha's story found its most famous form in one of China's greatest mythological novels, Fengshen Yanyi, or the Investiture of the Gods. This 16th century Ming Dynasty epic blends history, mythology, and fantasy, telling the tale of the Great War between the declining Shang Dynasty and the rising Zhou Dynasty. So what does Ne Zha truly represent in the Investiture of the Gods? Is he a protective hero and a symbol of defiance like Prometheus? In Fengshen Yanyi, Ne Zha's story begins in Chentang Pass, where a great general named Li Jing and his wife Lady Yin longed for a child. But when Lady Yin finally became pregnant, something strange happened. She carried the baby not for 9 months, but for 3 whole years and 6 months. Instead of a normal baby, she gave birth to a giant ball of flesh, shocking everyone. Fearing it was a demonic omen, General Li Jing drew his sword to destroy it. But before he could strike, the ball split open, revealing a child, a boy, Ne Zha. Little did they know, Ne Zha was no ordinary child. He was fearless and untamed. The moment he emerged, he jumped to his feet. Ne Zha's master, Tai Yi Zhenren, recognized his potential and took him as a disciple, teaching him powerful Taoist magic. Ne Zha was given a Qian Kun ring and a Hun Tian sash, both divine weapons that would make him a formidable warrior. Ne Zha grew into a mischievous but powerful boy, often causing trouble. His greatest act of defiance came when he accidentally angered the Dragon King of the East Sea. One day, while playing in the Juwan River near Chentang Pass, he met the Dragon King's minions, who were harassing local villagers. These minions were demanding human sacrifices to the Dragon King Ao Guang. This was a part of an ongoing system where mortals were forced to offer lives to appease the sea god. Ne Zha was outraged by the injustice. He fought and killed the water demons who were tormenting the villagers. One of the demons was Ao Bing's subordinate. Ao Bing was the Dragon King's son and a powerful dragon prince. When Ao Bing came to investigate, he confronted Ne Zha. Ao Bing tried to demand retribution for Ne Zha's earlier actions, but Ne Zha, always fearless and impulsive, engaged him in battle. Ao Bing tried to use his water magic, but Ne Zha was too strong and countered with his Qian Kun ring and Hun Tian sash. In the heat of battle, Ne Zha struck Ao Bing with the Qian Kun ring, killing him on the spot. This was a direct insult to Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea. The furious Ao Guang rose from the sea and stormed into Chentang Pass, demanding that Ne Zha be handed over. But Ne Zha, instead of begging for mercy, boldly fought back against the Dragon King himself, humiliating him before the entire court. The enraged Dragon King went to the ruler of heaven, Jade Emperor, to demand justice. Ao Guang confronted Ne Zha's family, demanding that Li Jing, Ne Zha's father, hand over his son. To protect his parents from divine punishment, Ne Zha took his own life by cutting off his bones and flesh and returning them to his parents. This act symbolized that Ne Zha completely severed their familial ties, absolving them of any responsibility for his actions. Because Confucian filial piety emphasized the deep bond and mutual responsibility between parents and children, This act of self-sacrifice was Ne Zha's way of taking full responsibility for his rebellion. This part of the story is often seen as defining Ne Zha as a rebellious hero. He stood up against tyranny, defended mortals against celestial oppression, and refused to accept the rule of the Dragon Kings. He didn't just fight, he fought without regard for divine hierarchy, without fear of the consequences. He died on his own terms, believing in his own sense of justice. But is that really the lesson the Investiture of the Gods wants to leave us with? If the story ended here, maybe, but it doesn't. So what happens after Ne Zha's death? His sacrifice shook heaven, and his master Taiyi Genren refused to let such a powerful soul be lost. Using a magical lotus flower, Taiyi Genren recreated Ne Zha's body, making him even stronger than before. Ne Zha was reborn, not as a mortal, but as a divine warrior. He became one of the mightiest warriors in the Investiture of the Gods, fighting alongside legendary figures to overthrow the corrupt Shang dynasty, paving the way for the new Zhou dynasty. What war was Ne Zha fighting in? At the heart of the war is King Zhou, the last ruler of the Shang dynasty. At the moment of the war, he was seen as a corrupt and ruthless king, but he wasn't always a tyrant. At the beginning, King Zhou was known as a strong and intelligent leader, but everything changed when he angered the gods. One day, King Zhou visited the temple of Ne Zha, a goddess in Chinese mythology known as the creator of humanity. Seeing her statue's beauty, he lustfully insulted the goddess, unaware that the heaven was watching. As punishment, Ne Zha cursed him, allowing the fox demon Daji to possess a noblewoman and enter his court. Under Daji's influence, King Zhou became a monster, indulging in brutal pleasures and executing loyal ministers. His rule became unbearable, and the gods knew it was time to overthrow King Zhou's reign. Ne Zha was one of the fiercest fighters in this war, defeats some of the most powerful warriors on King Zhou's side. After the war, Ne Zha ascended to a godly status, becoming one of the most beloved deities in Chinese mythology. So this is Ne Zha's story in Fengshen Yanyi. This story is often seen as the tale of rebellion, a kid who fights the gods and refuses to bow to authority. But here's the kicker. His rebellion changes absolutely nothing. To understand why, we have to take a closer look at the world of Fengshen Yanyi, a universe where power is set in stone, and no amount of fighting can truly break the unequal system. The universe of Fengshen Yanyi is divided into three main realms. The heaven sits at the top. Heaven is not just a spiritual place with only one god. It is a well-organized celestial government ruled by the Jade Emperor, like Zeus. You could call it the divine bureaucracy. The Jade Emperor governs all celestial beings, including Taoist immortals, Buddhist deities, and divine warriors. Below the Jade Emperor, we have immortal sages, celestial generals, and powerful spirits. These gods and immortals operate like officials in a vast empire, each assigned specific roles and domains. Ne Zha, for example, is a general tasked with defending heaven from demons and threats. The lower tier of the heaven includes minor gods, spirits, and recruited deities. The second realm is the human world. It exists in a permanent state of submission to heaven. Mortals don't rule themselves. Heaven decides who sits on the throne. The mandate of heaven, it's just another way of saying, you rule only because we allow it. And below even that, you have the spirit world, the demons, the exiled gods, the ones who tried to resist but never truly escaped. The war between Shang dynasty and Zhou dynasty that Ne Zha was fighting on the side of the heaven was a pivotal moment in defining the hierarchy of the two realms. From that moment on, every emperor in the human world was no longer just a king of human beings. They were the son of heaven. That title? It wasn't just for show. It meant one thing. You rule because heaven allows it. And if heaven changes its mind, you're done. Just look at the war against King Zhou of Shang dynasty. One day he's the most powerful ruler in the world. The next, heaven withdraws its favor and the entire Shang dynasty collapses. That's how it works. Rulers don't hold power on their own. They borrow it from heaven. And when heaven decides it's time for a new dynasty, no army, no strategy, no amount of power can stop it. What is special about this hierarchical system is that the line between gods, humans, and demons is not as clear as you'd think. Some gods were once mortals. Mortals can train in Taoist practices. They can study immortality and seek enlightenment, trying to reach the heavens and becoming a god. Some demons were once divine. Individual power shifts, roles change, but the system itself, that never moves. Heaven always rules. It sits at the top, superior, untouchable. It claims to maintain cosmic balance, but let's be real. Balance doesn't always mean justice. Gods, humans, and demons are not born equal. Rebellion isn't tolerated. Defiance isn't rewarded. Just look at Ne Zha. He dares to stand up to the Dragon King, refuses to bow, refuses to accept that humans are supposed to be weak and obedient. He wins the fight. But here's where it gets really ironic. You'd think someone who fought against the gods would eventually try to bring down the system, right? Wrong. He's the one who pays the price with his own life. Not the Dragon King, not the ones in power. Because the system was never about fairness. It's about control. The Jade Emperor doesn't punish the oppressors. He punishes the one who dared to resist them. That's how the world in Fengshen Yanyi works. Heaven always rules in mortals. They either fall in line or they fall entirely. The hierarchy can't be overthrown. It absorbs those who fight against it. The rebels who survive don't break the system. They become part of it. Just as Ne Zha gets reborn, not as a true rebel, but as a god himself, one that now serves the very celestial order he once opposed. So, was Ne Zha a hero? That's the thing about heroism in Chinese literature. It's not about breaking the system, it's about finding your place within it. In some cultures, a hero is often defined by personal will. They refuse to accept destiny and take matters into their own hands. But in China, a hero is part of a larger system. A hero's success is measured not by how much they can change the world, but by how well they serve a greater cause, whether that's the empire, the mandate of heaven, or family clans. Many legendary Chinese heroes start as rebels, but instead of destroying the hierarchy, they end up reinforcing it. Rebellious Ne Zha, absorbed into the system. Rebellious Sun Wukong, recruited into Buddhism. The rebellious outlaws in Water Margin serve the empire. Those who refuse to submit, they die. Because in China, heroism isn't about changing the system. It's about surviving and fulfilling their role in the system. And that's just Fengshen Yanyi's version of Ne Zha. But his story has never stopped changing. With the recent release of Ne Zha animation, the story keeps moving forward. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does it redefine Ne Zha's rebellious spirit, or does it bring him back into the traditional cycle of fate and duty? Let's talk in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more videos explaining and interpreting Chinese cultures.